A property in this country is nightmare. And it's even a far-fetched dream for many ordinary Namibians. We're not speaking about Namibians who are on the high end of the market. We're speaking about a basic, ordinary Namibian. You're looking at your taxi driver, looking at your domestic worker, looking at your cashier, looking at your young professionals. We've built such a great middle class. And unfortunately, our middle class has turned out to be a working poor. So even somebody with a decent salary of 15 to 20,000, it's a logistical nightmare. And it's a far-fetched dream for them to acquire that house. So what happened then is that result. We find ourselves living in expensive places where we can't afford. Expensive places we can't afford. Some, we opt to stay with our parents. Others, the last solution is, let's get to the informal settlement. After all, I only need to recharge my card once a month with $50. It's a hassle to get to where to get a taxi. It's an inconvenience during this winter and this heat. But ideally something where you call home, isn't it? So let's look at what our realities then are. So when you look at our realities, the picture on the far left shows us where we ought to be because of these conditions that we find ourselves in. The picture on the right looks a bit better, isn't it? The posh house, good house, where you want to stay. But I can guarantee the guy who lives here probably only has onions in his fridge. And water. When he goes to a party, he then pretends there's a dog at home and collects all the bones. Just to live by. Those are our daily realities. So it doesn't really matter where you find yourself in the equation. At the end of the day, our daily reality comes back to where we are. So it's either we opt to rent expensive places, or we live in the informal settlement. So even when we're in the informal settlement, it's not really where we want to be. Because I don't wake up every day 8 to 5. And imagine if you have a white horse. And all the nasty words they say to you on a daily basis. Even if you have a black boss, we've adapted that apartheid culture of not loving and nurturing one another. We partners, we're not employee and employer. Of course, there's that relations because of the labor act. But we need one another for the company to go. We need one another for government to move. But the way then you get pushed around all those days, 365 days of the year, just so that you can live like that, I don't think so. So everybody wants to have that change coming. So what do we then do? Most of us that are comfortably somewhere, we then opt to buy a house through a bank. But buying that house through a bank, we are then entangled to a 20 to 25 years marriage. Okay? So, even if you opt the other route of going to the bank, you are still entangled in this marriage, and as a fact, we then all become renting persons with different landlords. And why am I saying with different landlords? Because just miss 90 days. Just 90 days. Then you see the real owners of the property. It doesn't matter whether in this 20 years marriage you've been faithful, you have not cheated, you've been loyal for 19 years. Just in the last year, 3 months, 90 days, you've not been faithful. The real owner will come. So essentially what we wish to do is disrupt that market. So the day you buy one plot, we'll give you another one for free with your kids. That must be the future in property development. So essentially, when you buy a house in our modern day, through a bank or through any financial institution, you've essentially tied yourself into modern day slavery. So things have not changed. Yes, you feel I've not spent 1.2 million out of my pocket, but boy, do you know that in the next 20 years, you have some marriage that you need to work closely with. It doesn't matter whether it doesn't rain and you're a farmer and you pay for it. That guy just wants his money. So let's look at the picture of how a 350,000 whatever house would cost you. The first thing, you're getting it at a 10.25 prime rate. We've not used the current 8.75. We know why, isn't it? It's COVID times. But COVID times are going. We are going to get back to the normal situation where we are coming from. So the first thing that you must have is the salary worth $12,725 and more. Secondly, is that your premium per month would be about $3,435. And remember, it must be 30% of your salary. So if you have 12,000 and you know black tax and how our families are dying, I just don't understand it. Can they spare us, those of us that are in town? You end up going to loan sharks and wherever, and once they appear in the basement, then they say, no, you are too committed. But they forget that you are currently renting a place of 5,000. So when the payslip is not so clean and showing and appealing an appetite to these guys, they will definitely not consider it. So let's look at the total interest that you're going to pay. It's about $474,000 Namibian dollars. 474. You want to get how many? How much? 300. So you are paying more than what you went to look for. So essentially, in total, in the 20 years or 25, it looks very long. I'm sure when my mother had me in 1992, thought this child will not grow up this fast. Today I'm 29 and I should have paid off a house, isn't it? That's how time flies. Just imagine 1992 to today. Time flew. But essentially, when that time flies of 20 years, you would have felt the pain along the way. Because it's not the way things are always going to be smooth. Today we got sad news from Dimbulukweni Nauyoma yesterday when he was in Parliament. He said, us civil servants are not getting any increase. Now can you imagine if you're budgeting just that increase to fill a gap and you are already in this confinement? So at the end of the day, it does not help us. So how does then Property Group Save function? Because we are in a confined environment where limited resources must be apportioned properly, the first thing that we deal with is land acquisition. Because without land acquisition, we can't have this discussion. Because then I will be telling you was a dream. And I'll be telling you an idea. And we have had so many ideas. And those ideas will remain ideas until we get a tangible thing to work with. So that is why how we operate is that the first thing that we must do is ensure that we have acquired that land. So that we can now engage and say that we have access to the means of production. How do we then make this project feasible for everybody? So the next step is township establishment. So township establishment is the process in which then we get to do the environmental assessment, impact assessment, and as well as do submissions to local authorities if you find yourself within the confines of the local authority. With the current development, we've already done those processes, and we're just awaiting the certification of that township to be proclaimed. It's a lengthy process. It requires dedication and commitment from everybody. And I thank those that have been with us through this journey of township establishment. When we get the certificate, we are all going to celebrate. Because it's a process of going back and forth. Now imagine a person of my kind meeting somebody who doesn't like me because of who I am and not because of what we want to give to the people. So you have that back and forth fight all the time. Of course, it's a necessary exercise. Don't get me wrong. Township establishment is a necessary exercise. Why? Because this is where then we find and see what do developers want to give people. And one of the critical aspects in township establishment is the size of the area that the person must sit on, the streets that people must drive on, walk on, cycle on, run on, and lastly, the services and how the people are going to get access to those services. It's a critical exercise. That is why it's lengthy. And we are almost in the final stages. We are hoping that there are going to be stabilities in the building behind us. We see that there are stabilities now. We pray for more stabilities, isn't it? So that when there is stability in that building behind us, we are not mentioning names. But we see it, isn't it? So when we get more stability in that building, everything else runs smooth for all other projects of this caliber. So after that, we then do a very simple process called land servicing. Land servicing is the process in which now you get to see the bulldozers, the graders, we put in the sewer lines, your water reticulation, your electricity. You are now giving access to those significant plots in residential areas. So that people essentially now can have access to those plots. It's a process that takes about 6 months. Shouldn't take anything longer than 6 months, unless there are serious delays when people are getting COVID every day. But other than that, it should be a process of 6 months. And then essentially we then move into the housing development. That is where we then do the actual constructions of the houses. Now remember, there are two aspects that we need to cater for. The first aspect, somebody is looking for a plot and plan. The next aspect, somebody is looking for a freestanding house. So what you want to do is create an avenue for both persons. Where after you're done with land servicing, somebody wants plot and plan, you can go ahead. If you're looking for a complete house, we also then do that engagement. And the final one is the commercial loan. Now the commercial loan is simply looking at how does the project survive beyond the socio-economic component that we've plugged in. The socio-economic component that we've plugged in is that you realize when we move further down, is when you look at the market-related prices and what our partners have gotten, saying any bird catches the earliest worm. Was there what worm? Yeah, that worm. So those that have gotten the worm would have realized how much we've managed to save them. Those that are still coming on board would have realized, yes, you're not going to get market related, but you're also going to get fairly somewhere. So that is where the commercial loan comes in, because we must then essentially now function. We must take kids to school, we must do a lot of sponsorship. I just want to roughly and briefly go through the black barter development. So our is clear enough, between 73 and 224, there, that will be our entrance. It's going to be a closed estate, something similar to what you've seen in Ellisonheim, on Fingerstein, or Meyer, and you can name them all. Why we've opted to have an exclusive because we felt that the only way that you can regulate and control pricing and standards is when you own that development yourself. The moment we get a piece of land in the city of Windhoek and we develop it, the pricing is going to be in the hands of the city of Windhoek. So you don't regulate and you don't achieve what you want to have. Because what you're simply saying is the housing market for an ordinary Namibian is a far-fetched dream. So we want them to make that a reality. So everything else that you see in the green in this development is public open spaces. Public open spaces are critical. If you see the riverbeds in the city of Windhoek, the next thing you see there is flats. Guys don't care anymore where our kids must play. So we want to make sure that we have enough space available for recreation as well as fun in all of those parks. So that the children as well as all of us, after you get stressed from Windhoek, when you enter the estate, we forget the stress of Windhoek and at least you have something beautiful to look up to. So everything in the peach color will then be as part of compliance with the township establishment regulations and to have general residential. So that's where you put up flats as well as your sectional titles. So it's 1 to 150. So if you want to have a little townhouse with a backyard garden or whatever it is, you're getting a provision in that. And you're also going to share more on that new development. So everything else then in the blue, we're looking at the business aspect of it. We had a beautiful conversation with our architects. And as soon as it's done, we'll probably call a similar gathering just so that we can share with you. And why we call it here is simply to share because we're excited and we want you to be part of that excitement with us in the development. It's going to be a themed business park. So that business park, primarily up there, would cater for your amenities, whether it's your shops, whether it is your medical care, whether it is your conference centers, whether it's your leisure. So you have access to restaurants, shops, and all those amenities. So that's what we're going to put in there. We are also in talks with the fuel and petrol stations, guys who control that market, to also make sure that at the end of the day, we don't need to always be mindful that we need to fuel up when we're in Windhoek, but you could simply just fuel up at home and drive to work or drive to your holiday destination. But also what we want to critically put in is amenities that are not found in Windhoek for purposes of recreation, because it must be an estate where somebody who is even in the north would want to come and see and also would want to come and visit. So we are indeed building an estate that is going to be themed, an estate that have never been seen before, an estate that would create peace, tranquility to anybody who wishes to be living in it. So the next slide, you essentially just get a feel on our 3D designs. Essentially for somebody who, in the average size, is reaching about 512 square meters. So somebody who would not know how much 512 square meters look like, just this house here sits on a 516, that's about 4 more extra space. So when you look at it from that angle, you are able to envisage how big that 512 is. So for some of us who grew up in Kalatura, our elements were about 250. So it's double those two. So those of us who lived in Dora, Mambolokasi, some guys in the figure, Lokasi. So when you do a double or a combination of those two, it essentially get you to somewhere close to that 500 squares. So why then would you want to choose Property Group Save Namibia? Simple. We've discovered the dead horse. We're getting off the dead horse. And we're simply bringing a unique approach to the housing. can do to a person. So we offer you a zero interest rate approach. If we agree tonight that we're giving you a product for $20, and you're paying it off in 2 years, you're paying it off in 10 years, you're paying it off in 5 years, at the end of the day, you still be paying that $20. So you wouldn't want to be enslaved into something that you're already in. So if you're going to change things, if you're going to disrupt things, so let us disrupt them correctly and make sure that things are going in that way. So with them removing the 20-year mortgage bond, we want to make sure that you're not kept in some sort of bondage. We all know where the morgue is, right? In what stays in the morgue. So let's remove people out of that modern day morgue and give real freedom to people. We also offer flexible payment options where we must have that one-on-one conversation. Let's tailor-make your payment methods so that we don't have Mr. 90 Days coming to repossess everything when you can't pay. Simply because the president has announced no contact sports. You're a coach. No contact sports, you're a coach. What happens now? How do you make a living? So because there is no contact sports, you can't make a living, somebody must then throw you out of your house. No, it shouldn't be that. We should be able to engage, find one another. What we also then offer is part and beyond of those 90 days. We actually offer you 180 days so that we can resolve the financial crisis. So we find other amicable solutions. How do we fund for your project? So Black Butter Estate is about the quick in, quick out. If you live in Ochomwise and we are meeting in town in the CBD, and I'm coming from the Black Butter Estate, best be assured that I shall get here before you. We all know that. If you live in Havana, sorry, we can't even debate. And the guy who lives here by Austin, maybe we will meet halfway. So the convenience really of getting in and out is what we offer you. It's safe and secure. We are going to offer you 24-hour patrol. We are proud to announce that we have members of the security cluster in our estate. Yes, guys, you can smile, I see you. So, but we also don't take safety for granted. So we're going to make sure that it's really, really safe and secure for everybody else. In terms of those that love nature, the ambience, peace, and tranquility is to die for. Of the 3D, we're actually working towards consolidating funding to ensure that we put in as much plans as possible. We're going to encourage you as a partner to also start planning when you move in so that we have enough oxygen. When that time comes again, we just move closer to the 3. Carbon dioxide, oxygen, carbon dioxide, oxygen. Back to normal. These things. The more plans we have, the better we are, isn't it? So it's easy access to the program. So let's just give you a sneak preview of for 195,000, sitting on a 500. Guys who first came in